All right. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. This is your afternoon update on Tropical Storm Erin and the rest of the Atlantic Basin. Overall, not too much going on today besides Erin in the basin. We do have a little tropical wave down here in the Western Caribbean that's popped up. This is moving across the Yucatan Peninsula today. It will slip into the Bay of Campeche and the Southern Gulf over the next few days and should push into Texas and northern Mexico by this weekend. Heavy rainfall is probably going to be a thing somewhere in this region right here. Although the Hurricane Center gives us only just like a 20% chance of development, so hopefully not a big deal. And we'll be keeping one eye on that, but not anticipating to see anything strong out of that. And the only other thing we had on the map was this little area south of Nova Scotia, but it's moved over colder water, thus ending any hope that thing had to develop. And Invest 96L long gone, Dexter long gone. So Erin is the only player in town on the map located right here in the Central Atlantic Basin and chugging along to the west. So National Hurricane Center's advisory, their map, first of all, again, 20% chance in that wave down in the Gulf. Again, not expecting a whole lot out of that. This thing's a zero. It'll be off the map by this afternoon. And then Erin down there. Ninth advisory from the Hurricane Center at 11 a.m. Maximum sustained wind, still 45 miles an hour. Erin has not really significantly intensified in the last 24 to 48 hours since we last talked. It's pretty much held steady. We kind of thought that was what was going to happen, and that pretty much has. Movements to the west still at 17 miles an hour. It's really tracking just south of due west, but they kind of is so close to west they just kind of keep leaving west on the thing. The big thing to note here, 17 miles an hour is down from the 22 to 23 it was yesterday evening, yesterday morning. So the storm's slowing down a little bit as it starts to kind of round that little turn and make a little bit more of a northward latitude gain. That's important because as the storm slows down, it'll have a little bit better chance to develop. When these storms move 23, 24 plus miles an hour, it's really hard to intensify any significant way. Very hard to create, relative vorticity when you're flying along at 25 miles an hour. So when the storm slows down a little bit, it'll have a little bit more of an opportunity to develop and get a little stronger. One of the big things we talked about is sea surface temperatures along Erin's track. That'll help it increase its intensity as we go through the next few days. This is what it's tracked over the last 24 to 48 hours. Pretty cool water, 24, 25, 26 degrees Celsius. That's like 70s to like early low 80s. Really not enough water temperature to do a whole lot more than hold steady intensification. But it looks like Erin has survived this period with a pretty intact low-level center, and that we're going to see this move into much warmer water over the next few days. This map from Tomer Berg's website. And as we go into Friday, Saturday, much warmer water awaits it as it moves north of the Caribbean. So looking at satellite presentation of Erin, a big thing to note is that it's kind of between Saharan air layer outbreaks. It had one ahead of it a few days ago that's since moved off. We can see these stable shadow cumulus clouds to the north of Erin today and a little bit of dustier air with that high pressure burst to our north. And that's kind of causing that back side of the storm, the east side of the storm, to stay kind of ragged and exposed. You can see that partially exposed circulation center with one little thunderstorm trying to wrap around an anchor on top of that low-level center. But a curved convective band out to the west of the storm trying to wrap around. So Erin's got like a little half thing going on. That's not really that half shrimp dreaded look we see with a rapidly intensifying cyclone. It's more of just, hey, this is the only place thunderstorms really can get going right now. So this kind of ragged appearance is going to stick around with us for the next about 24 to 48 hours. HWRF has this showed pretty well. So this is the HWRF going into this afternoon. You can see that western curved convective band, but then a lot of raggedness on that east side of the storm. And the HWRF, keep an eye on that pressure number right there, 1,003. As we run through tomorrow, even in tomorrow evening, 1,000 millibars, only 2 or 3 millibars in 24 hours is not a very good rapid, and that's not really much of a deepening rate at all. But you can see that the organization slowly improves. We still kind of have a west-weighted storm, but you can see that storms will be consolidating more over that center as we go into tomorrow. So don't expect any major intensity jumps tonight or tomorrow with Erin. But as we go into tomorrow night, you can see that that pressure begins to deepen and that convection begins to stack up on top of the storm. And that's when that's probably going to light it off into a more quick intensification pace. You can see here 998, 993 as we go into early Friday morning, 987 by late Friday morning. I mean, the bottom starts falling out of this on Friday, and it looks like most of our models, HWRF, HFAST, HMON, all of them pretty much uniformly agree that sometime on Friday, a period of quick to rapid intensification will occur, and the storm will be much stronger by the time it approaches the northern Caribbean islands. You can see here on Saturday on the model is showing the very edge of the northern Antilles right here. and Aaron becoming a powerful, likely major hurricane by Saturday afternoon with that central pressure in the 960s and a much better overall picture of organization from the storm. So that's been pretty uniform across all our regional hurricane models. No surprise there. So taking a look at how this actually looks in a little more zoomed out function, we'll just use the GFS, which is of course behind in terms of pressure, but even the GFS shows us being in the 970s. So definitely somewhat impressive as it moves again. But very good, remarkable consistency run to run. This is going to stay just north of those islands, just about 100, 150, 200 miles off to the north, which should keep all the major impacts away. Aaron does not look like it's going to be a terribly large storm by this point, so hopefully no major hits to the Puerto Rico or Virgin Islands, kind of Northern Antilles right there. You can see run to run here. The GFS is pretty much keeps putting this in the same place at the same time. So there's been pretty good consistency run to run, especially for the GFS. It's trended maybe very so slightly closer to the islands, but not enough where I would be alarmed or concerned yet. I think the bulk of the models still, again, show that it's very likely that the storm is going to move north of those islands. And even on Tomer Berg's super ensemble plot output, most of the ensemble ellipses are basically sitting on the edge of the island. So, it could be close enough for some tropical storm conditions on these most northernmost islands. But, again, here it does look like the bulk of Aaron's wrath will miss there. As we go into the next couple of days after that, we're going to have this thing sitting north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, and models, again, in good agreement up until this point. This is the GFS in Euro on the 500 millibar, showing that both models think that storm will be sitting just east of the Bahamas going into Monday night. Now, we're going to have a couple of troughs dancing down this upper level low, and we're going to have high pressure sitting out over the central Atlantic, and we're going to have a high pressure ridge over the central U.S., and this should create that weakness that Aaron's going to try to shoot and move back out to sea. And I would say confidence still remains pretty good. That's what's going to happen in the broad sense. The question is going to be, well, exactly how does this look? We look at the ensembles from the GFS and the Euro, and there are still, especially on the Euro, about 20 to 30% of the members continue to outlie, continue to push further west. Now, I don't think that at this point this is going to careen into Cuba or South Florida or the Gulf. I think that the solutions where this just plows westward are probably, almost 0% at this point. But, you can't discount what you see here on the European model. These last this last little group of members out here, I think that there's a world where this could at least brush closer to the Bahamas than is comfortable. And then, if you get this, basically the way to think about it is 70 degrees west, the line of longitude at 70 west is a good wall. If Aaron makes that turn before 70 west, the U.S. East Coast is fine. There's not going to be any direct impacts. It's just going to be rip currents, swell waves, things like that. If Aaron is able to cross that Rubicon past 70 north, then you get into these members here, you've got a little bit more of a concern that how, sweeping and how fast is the turn more like a sharp hook? Is it a more of a lazy hook that kind of drags us closer to the coast? There's definitely worlds where this gets closer. And the problem is, although the overall probability is low that Aaron will come significantly close to the eastern U.S., the problem is if it were to, this will be a powerful hurricane. Aaron will almost certainly be a Category 3, Category 4 hurricane when it is making this turn, when it is coming up the U.S. East Coast and turning up into the trough. And, historically, the few storms that have stood out in this pattern and where Aaron is versus where they wind up, if you look at every storm that's crossed where Aaron is right now within a certain radius, the few that outlie are powerful hurricanes that have hit, the Carolinas or the Mid-Atlantic or New England, So I guess I want to stress that although the probability is very good that Aaron is going to turn off the East Coast, if things don't behave down the road, the potential for impacts is still very high. So I want people to understand that it's not like, oh, well, it comes a little closer. Oh, well, it's like, well, if it doesn't behave, this could be a real problem, is basically how I want to kind of phrase that. Hopefully that makes some sense. Again, bulk of the models, especially the GFS, all turn this north. Now, the Canadian Maritimes, Nova Scotia, you guys are going to want to watch this. The European model has that sharper hook where it kind of winds up missing. The GFS kind of sees that trough escaping and then the storm turning and then kind of just lazily moving more due north. That's very possible. And we're talking about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days out here. So the models, again, are going to change based on this. But the confidence is higher that it will stay north of the islands. We have good confidence there, but this super ensemble plot kind of shows this well. These ellipses pretty tight through the next couple of days. But as you run out beyond 96 hours, you can see that spread starts to pick up pretty dramatically as we go into Tuesday, Wednesday kind of time frame. This thing could be all the way over at 60 west on some models. It could be all the way into the Bahamas on some models. So again, that 70 line of longitude line, just very crudely, roughly drawn here, is kind of like your bulwark. Like anything that comes across that line could be more of an issue. So that's what we're going to watch. That's the things we're watching over the next couple of days. But thankfully right now, Aaron, no major threat at the moment. Again, highly likely to recurve. It's just going to be a question of how. And that's really it, again, for the major stuff in the tropics today. We're going to have this little wave move up into Texas. Again, rainfall, big threat with that one. And we're going to see some more African waves roll off. We will have another 2 or 3 waves splashing down. We got one, in the monsoon trough trying to pop out here south of the islands. And we could have 2 or 3 more storms to talk about. NOAA's 2-week outlook does have a good amount of activity in the central MDR. And that'll kind of be the area we'll watch over the next few weeks as more storms will try to pop out of here. Will they follow Aaron? Will they do something different? Who knows? So later this week, we're going to have the hurricane hunters going out to St. Croix. They're going to, USA Air Force hurricane hunters are going to go station up in St. Croix, which is in the Northern Antilles, and they will fly the storm the next couple of days as it moves through from there. And then when it gets closer, they'll probably return back home and then fly out of the home base. So we'll have some in the storm data over the next few days coming up for us. So that'll help our forecast models a little bit. And we're just going to have to keep watching this pattern carefully and seeing how it plays out, guys. So that's what I got for you guys today on your tropical update. We will have more stuff, daily updates on the page, routine updates on the page, on the Facebook page, and then YouTube. We'll probably talk again Friday or Saturday whenever we have some more information. So until then, guys, thanks for watching and have a good one.